Hello, I'm Nate from WYSIWYG Studios. Thank you for joining us today. So, these videos are going to be a bit impromptu. I'm not pulling out any of my camera equipment for like lighting and stuff. I just have my camera and a mic. My wife is over in the corner doing her accounting stuff. My son is in class right now in the other room. So, we're just going to play it by ear, but I wanted to make a series of videos for my new army. So since ninth edition for 40K has dropped, I have jumped on board with a new army. I have always wanted to do a Sisters of Battle army, and I just never really got around to it. But new edition, new army, that whole thing. I figured this would be the perfect time. So these videos are going to be kind of an impromptu thing of me making sure that I get everything built and painted in a timely manner, while also giving you guys some ideas on how to approach like a paint scheme, building your miniatures with painting in mind, those kinds of things, and then also being able to break up the army in chunks, so that way as you get things painted, you could do kind of like an escalation thing where you start at 500 points, 1,000 points, 1,500 points, and then back up to 2,000. Or if you're doing like power levels, being able to do like a 50 power level army really quickly and have it fully painted. So, with that said, today I am going to just introduce the models that I have. I have already started. So there are going to be some cuts here or there of footage that I've done before this video. But for the most part, it should be easy to follow, and then it's going to keep me grounded, and so that way I get everything done. So without further ado, let's walk through what I have currently. I will show you the process that I've done up to this point to figure out a solid paint scheme that I like, and then we'll go from there. So, yeah, let's take a look at the models real quick. Alright, so the models that I have assembled right now and kind of the route that I've been going. And so the route I've been going is I really like Bloody Rose. And so I got two full squads of Repentia here for being able to hit hard. Battle Sisters, I have a 10-man unit right now, which we'll get to here in a second, but these guys are really hard to find, so I only have one full box of those guys, and then I broke them up in a little different way. Then we've got our HQ style choices here, which I've already started painting some of these. We got our mortifiers. I still have one that I need to build, but we'll cover that here in a second when it comes to those. I'm just going to kind of break down each thing. I got Celestine. I already showed you those guys. And then we've got our little flyers over here. And, so these guys have already been started as well. So, and then this guy. So, I had a local game store print me up this from Thingiverse, and so it goes on pretty well. I had to do a couple of modifications in the back to make it work, but I definitely like it because the Rhino is my all-time least favorite model in the GW range. I think it looks awful. It is just not a cool tank at all. And so if I am going to run Rhinos, then I am going to modify the heck out of them. So let's go ahead and slide some stuff over, because now that I've shown you the models that I have, I'm going to break down this section of stuffs real quick. So next up, we are going to talk about these guys and then explain how I have everything going on over here. Okay, so the minis you see in front of us here, this is kind of the progression of how I went about this paint scheme, and I went from one spectrum all the way to a different spectrum. So first off, I started when I was like, okay, I'm doing Bloody Rose, so let's look into doing the standard Bloody Rose scheme. So I was going to do the red armor with the black and the white on the inside. And as I was blocking in the colors, I didn't really like the gray or doing the black and the white. I don't know, it just, once I saw it on the model, I wanted to do something a little different. So I tested a different color. Now, I have always loved this color. This is Eldritch from the Privateer Press Paints range, P3. And the only time I ever got to use this was on my Crucible Guard. But I don't play War Machine anymore, and so I sold my Crucible Guard, and I have a couple of bottles of this color that I've been really, really itching to use. But, as you can tell, it just doesn't really go well with red. So I nixed the whole red idea. And then I don't have some of the colors that you really need to be able to mix a solid Eldritch. So I was testing out a deep purple here to be able to then build up Eldritch. But when I got it on my wet palette, it just was not working right. However, the bone armor that you see here, or the off-white armor, I felt like would be the perfect fit for the Eldritch when you're using it for its cloth. And so that's how I ended up with this. This is my first full test mini. This is fully based, ready to go. It's been sealed. I think I'm gonna have to go back and reseal it a little bit because I didn't hit this cape well enough with the matte, so it's got a really weird sheen to it. But all in all, this is where we ended up. And I know that was like a 2-minute explanation of where we were at, but the experimentation took like 2 weeks. Like, painting this guy up was really simple, and then I kind of stared at it for a couple of days, and then I didn't really want to do anything. And then I tried this guy out, and the same thing happened, and then I moved to this guy, so it's like 2, 4, 6 days, so almost a week right here, and then I didn't touch it for a week. And that is one of the main reasons for this video series, is just to show you guys progress, maybe inspire you guys to get out there and finish painting some of your duders, but also to keep me grounded to be able to get a whole army to this point. So that way I can not only get those CPs for having or not CPs, victory points for having a fully painted army in 9th, but also to play with a fully painted army, because just gray is awful. So, normally when I am building something like this, I will have a notebook, and I will start with the scheme that I am attempting. So I started here, and for the red armor, I decided for both of these, when I did this, that I was going to do a zenithal highlight. So this one I did a zenithal highlight of the bone color. And then this one I did a zenithal highlight of just black up to white. And if you don't know what a zenithal highlight is, it's basically you're starting with your deepest color. So in this case, I started with black, and that goes all over the model. And then I would go up a shade to gray, and then that comes in at a little bit steeper of an angle so that only the black bits are in the vertical. So like if you turn this over, you can see that there's still a lot of black under the model. And then you go to your next highlight, which in this case was white, and then that just pretty much comes straight down at whatever angle you want to represent where the sun is coming from. And so for this specific model, I just did from the very top, and that's why you can see that the top is a little bit brighter. This one, I did the bone just to kind of see if I could get a different sheen, or a different hue, I mean. So this is a little bit cooler of a red than this one. And then for the red itself, this is just really diluted Flesh Terrors red contrast paint. So I used an airbrush to do all of this prep work. And I basically just shot the Zenithal highlight on both of these, then diluted some Flesh Terrors red with more contrast medium so that it was like a full glaze consistency. And then just lightly went over these models until I got a solid red that I was looking for. And then the other colors are painted with a paintbrush. So using that knowledge of doing this, I was like, okay, well, I had already done this one with a bone. So let's do the bone and not the red. So with the bone color is done with a Zenithal highlight. So I started with my my deepest brown, which, give me 1 second, I need to find the colors. Okay, I'm back. And so, yeah, you probably just heard me rolling around. So for this I used P3 paints. So I did Gun Corpse Brown for my base color. And then for like the 45 to 65 angle spray, I used Hammerfall Khaki. And then directly down on it, I used Menoth White Highlight. Now, for this model, once I had this down and I did the purple and I didn't really like it, I started over going with this whole base, everything here. And that's where I started with this guy. And so I did the same setup. I did the up from my deepest, so the Gun Corpse, and then Hammerfall, and then straight down with the Menoth White. The issue that I have right now is that I have my Necron stuff still, and I was doing a Necron scheme here where I was doing like a marble effect. And so where I kind of went wrong with this was that in order to get that marble effect for the Necrons and to have a shine to it, I mixed my original Gun Corpse, Hammerfall Khaki, and Menoth White Highlight with Gloss Fluid Medium instead of a Flow Improver. And so I took a matte paint and I made it gloss. And so by doing that, I now have a really, really shiny model that I'm having a hard time getting back down to the matte color that I wanted. So I remixed the paints, and that's why you can see here that I have on there it says matte, because so now I have two bottles of this, one that's gloss and one that's not. And so we'll just go over to one of the models real quick. And you can see that I have done, so I started with black for all of the models, just as a base coat, because you don't want to start what am I trying? Okay, so the Gun Corpse Brown is not a it's a base paint. It's not a primer. And so I primed everything black so that way the Gun Corpse Brown and all the other following colors had something to stick to. And so I have done my zenithal highlights with those three colors, and you can tell pretty quickly, how different it looks. It's not as brute shiny. So the next step from this, which is something I didn't really talk about, is I do go in with Agrax Earthshade to kind of pull out some of these. And then here I didn't do any edge highlighting, but I do plan on doing more edge highlighting with a whiter color. I don't know if I'm just going to put white in the Menoth white highlight to lighten it up, or if I'm just going to go straight white just to get some really high contrast points. But so these guys have been started. I'll show you Celestine real quick because she's a little bit, let's see if I can get that. So you can tell, you still have the brown, and then there's still some black underneath, under her butt where the paints aren't going to be. That'll be tinted a little bit with the Agrax Earthshade, so it's not a full black. It'll be tinted brown, so it'll come all together. And then it just goes up, and then for her, I think I'm going to paint her corset a different color just because it's out in the open and she's supposed to be like a living saint duder. So that is a kind of a mouthful breakdown of where I was going with the bone armor. And then, as I said, I really, really love the Eldritch. So let me reach over and grab it. So this is the Eldritch from P3. So this is my base. So if you go P3, you're supposed to shade this with coal black, and then you're supposed to bring it. Your highlight is Rin Flesh. I don't have those, and so I experimented with the flesh colors that I do have, and I came out that I really liked this flavor, and so I'm gonna shade it with Sotek Green, and I'm gonna highlight it with Flayed One Flesh, and that's where you get this. So like the edge highlights on top, all the main highlights there are flayed, and then you get a little bit of the bluish tint from the Sotek Green up inside. Now this was done with just traditional layering, so put everything down, and then I using thin paint to be able to put these colors down. There'll be a video on that for sure. And then I guess last thing to talk about when it comes to the finished model is I have resin cast some pieces of a base that I used to have. I don't have the bases anymore, but I still have the mold. So I've made these, and these are going to be painted with black and white to look like marble. You can kind of see it there, and then I just put some black ink in the middle to kind of bring out the contrast between the two, or between the tiles in that. And so that's my thought process on the paint scheme itself. I have not thought about how I'm going to paint my mortifiers yet, but I did want to talk about real quick. So my mortifiers are in pieces, and so I have the main body, which is going to be really easy to be able to get to because there's a lot of metallic pieces here. And so I've got the mortifier leader. I'm not sure what it's called, sorry. And then the regular mortifier. And so like this piece is going to be really easy to paint because it's mostly metals. Actually, it's pretty much all metals because the cables and stuff are probably going to end up being a metallic color too. But then this guy, you know, he's in there strapped in doing his thing. So it'll be a little bit easier to paint him. And then I have the arms separate as well because I plan on doing that. And yeah, these guys aren't base coated because I'm still trying to figure out the best way to mount these. So if you see my flyers here in the back, where their jump packs are supposed to go, there I just drilled a hole and then mounted a pin, and so then this pin can go into a pin vise, and I'll be able to paint it pretty easily. And then for this, where the flight stand is glued to, I drilled a hole and then stuck a pin in there, so then this can be painted separately as well. But when it all goes together, every part that I put a pin through, so all the spots that would show holes, when everything goes together with the flight stand, all of those holes will be covered up. So I won't have to worry about filling those. And that's why these aren't painted, is because I'm trying to figure out the best way to be able to hold these and still be able to cover up the hole when it's done. So like these guys, they connect like this, you know, it's backwards arm, this side. And so, you know, it goes in there like that. And so I'll most likely drill a hole on this side, so that way when I glue it into place, it's not there, or I'll glue it, or I'll send it through. So then when it glues like that, it'll disappear. So I still have to figure that out, which is not a big deal. And then just real quick, so then I also, Celestine's wings are separate, and this is going to be really simple to paint. So just going to stick this on my handle, just, and then go together. And so like, and then also with everything that I'm painting, I'm using Redgrass Games painting handle, their version 2, the one that can pop off. So when I go through and do everything, I can just pop one off and keep going. So there's a little plug. This thing is awesome. I've used it for a while. As you can tell, I've got it. It's all spray painted with various colors. And then I use, for paintbrushes, I have the Artist Opus. I have Series S and Series Ds all the way up. So I have 000 all the way up to 2. And then for these guys, I have the small all the way up to the extra large. And I love these. Very, very good paints, or paintbrushes. And they all work really, really nicely. So, all right. So I think that is enough for me rambling. I think I got everything that I wanted to talk about. You know, I'm just, don't have scripts. Don't have any of my lights. Like the only light I have right here is from my table light that I use to paint with. Yeah. So this really is just to kind of keep me motivated, and hopefully it's going to motivate you to be able to, you know, if you're having issues, wanting to, you know, you want an army painted, you know, follow them along with me with whatever army you're doing. I explained my thought process a bit on how I came up with my paint scheme. I know it was really, it's a lot more, I guess, not necessarily detailed, but it's a lot more involved because I have a notebook and I'm writing ideas down, and then I have to try those ideas. So like, I take a model, you know, and there's other avenues too. Just real quick, I mean, if you don't want to paint a model, you can always print out a model, find concept art and color it in with pencils or Photoshop or something, so you're not actually doing it directly onto a model. I am not that sophisticated, so I just do it on a model, and then if I have to strip the model down the road, I can, or if I just paint over it, I usually do enough thin layers to where I won't cover up any main details if I have to paint over it once or twice. Don't recommend that though, because you can end up destroying the detail, but I'm confident that in my painting abilities that's not going to be the case. So I'm rambling again. So yes, that's it. That's all I've got for today. The next video is probably going to be painting up a Sisters of Battle fully with the proper matte colored paints, and then we'll go from there. So if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below. If this is the type of material that you enjoy, try to hit that subscribe button for me and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any more of this series. And then a thumbs up would be really awesome. And yeah, so that will do it, guys, gals. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.